So mga kabanat, narito yung interview, no? Itong ginawang interview kagabi kay Profesora Contreras sa CNN Philippines, kasama ni itong isang professor din, yung babae. Kung saan nagduda si Professor Contreras dito sa survey kay Leni Robredo. Ang sabi niya kasi kung talagang itong si Leni Robredo ay totoong nanalo noong 2016 at hindi niya hindi nga nadaya itong si Bongbong Marcos, sana mataas yung survey ni Leni Robredo. Nga lang napakababa kasing survey ni Leni Robredo, sa halos nga ngayon ay tila mas malakas pa si Mayor Isko Moreno kumpara kay Leni Robredo. Napakalayo kasi tingnan pag sa survey kasing basihan mo natin ay halos napakalaki, 39%. Nakaraan ay halos 57% si si Bongbong Marcos, samantala si Leni Robredo ay 15% lamang. Kahit sa mga nakita nating ibang mga vlogger kalye survey, kahit dito sa lugar namin ay talagang gustong-gusto ay si Bongbong Marcos. At yan, nagduda tuloy itong si Professor na baka totoo nga na dinaya itong si Bongbong Marcos noong 2016, ay lalo na ngayon ang isa pang dahilan daw kaya pinili itong si Bongbong Marcos ngayon ang suportahan ng tao dahil walang nangyari anyang pagbabago sa pamumuno ni Presidente Duterte. Ika nga, there's no change, ayon nga nan kay Professor Contreras at ayon dito kay ano ba to? Pia Ontiveros. So panoorin niyo ito mga kabanat. Video na ito, credito sa NML Philippines. Pakita ko lang sa inyo this interview ni Professor Tonton Contreras. So panoorin niyo.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No change.
Yeah.
There's no change.
Okay. Kanina nabanggit mo, Professor Tono, 2016. I remember Lenny was saying that she'd run if Bongbong would run so that she could stop him. But she squeaked past him by like 200,000 votes in 2016 in the VP race. But what's it going to be like now? Because the surveys don't put Lenny, very high up there. So, paano na?
So you really have to ask, if indeed Lenny won in 2016, you have to ask, why are the numbers like that? Maybe things happened. Maybe I would explain that first of all, Lenny was really savage by bad PR by coming from the diehard Duterte supporters. And second, it is the perception also about, is it really true now? Nasasabi tuloy mga tao, minsan, pag ganyan ang number, ito nga pa talagang dinaya siguro si Bongbong. Nakakadagdag yan dun ngayon sa vengeance, redemption narrative. That abay, dito na tayo kasi ito ay dinaya. Kasi nakikita ngayong numbers.
Pero, kailangan ko pong magsakripisyo kay Pangulong Duterte at sa pamilya. Gagawin ko po. Kasi wala naman po akong ambisyon na maging Pangulo. That is politics. Ganun po talagang politika. Who would expect na ako ang standard bearer bilang Vice President? Tapos ngayon, hindi na ako kasama sa karera.
But the president...
Yan po ang yan ang resulta ng politika. Diyan po ang dumi ng politika, diyan po ang init ng politika. Kaya sinabi, if you cannot stand the heat, then get out of the kitchen.
Sir, kailan kayo punta sa COMELEC, sir, to withdraw?
Actually, hindi ako nahihilo kasi in-expect ko na tupiya From the very start, I looked at Philippine politics now with a different lens. That it is almost like a simulacra or something that is staged. That it is both a reality game show and a soap opera and a political event. And because of this, I told myself I need to think outside the box. That someone is writing this for us, and the only difference is that there is no price of money. The price is Malacanang. So I think it's something that you can always argue that the withdrawal of Senator Bongo is a sacrifice. But, because it's a sacrifice because he wanted to be vice president and then he was kicked upstairs because to give way to Sara Duterte. And yet he knows that he could not win the presidency. But he wanted to be the vice president. So it's a sacrifice. He was played. He was a pawn in the big game. But at the same time, the other side of that, you can also argue that he knows he's just playing his part. So I might be wrong, but that is how I look at the political game right now. And what triggers me to think that way, Pia, is I was told by someone that the way President Duterte plays politics is like a game of chess, that he anticipates the moves of people. So I think that's something that we need to reflect on.
So sacrifice and simulacra.
Are we being played?
Yeah. Simulacra, define that again, and it is a word that will mean what? Simulated what?
Yeah, well, it's based from postmodern theory, and I think Ash would know this. It's basically,
simulated
when
reality.
When you lose distinction of reality and what is reality, what is imagined. And it's very much like true in reality game shows where, like the Kardashians, you don't know, is it real or are they just acting? So it is now, politics is now acquiring that flavor. Ito
So
ba
parang,
ito, umaarte lang? O tunay
may pagka,
talaga?
baka naman we're already daydreaming, parang ganon.
Yes,
Ash,
so something
Ash
to that
Presto,
effect.
is that right?
Yeah, or
I would
it's
agree
almost
with-
like you're in a
I
theme
would
park.
agree with Prof.
You don't know
Contreras
what
also.
this is something that is fantasy, yet it is real. You can see this. You can see the Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, and yet they're fantasy. So it's like that. Politics is like that now.
Yeah, but
it's
you know,
almost like
but for how many generations of people all over the world, no, Mickey and Minnie are real, even if they're really not.
yeah,
But
that's
anyway,
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
no,
So Santa Claus is also simulacra. You know? It's
Yeah.
an imagined
Okay.
thing, but it's also you see it in the malls. And
Ash.
politics has become like that. You know, politics has become like that.
So Ash, itong nga pag-withdraw ni Bongo. Let's talk about BBM later. Yung withdrawal of Bongo.
I would like to first add to what Pia has mentioned a while ago about capability and popularity. So I would also add charisma in the mix, because you need charisma to be elected for office. And we know that President Duterte has had a lot of that in 2016. And what is different from a charisma is that you have to make people believe that you're capable of doing things. Whether you're capable or not of doing these things doesn't matter. You just have to make people believe. So a lot of people believe that Duterte was, can end criminality in 3 to 6 months, and until now a lot of people still believe that. So that's charisma, and that also figures in the statement of Bongo today in his withdrawal of his candidacy. So he mentioned that he is not from known political families, and this is very interesting because we know that originally Bongo was gunning for vice presidency, but then the daughter Sara Duterte announced the candidacy, and we all know Sara Duterte is very charismatic. The last name is very charismatic. The woman is also very charismatic by herself. And afterwards, they were pushed almost at very fast pace to announce the presidential candidacy for Bongo. And you all know he is facing another very charismatic leader, which is Bongbong Marcos. So again, charisma plays a very big role in this. You don't
Ash,
have to be capable, you just have to make people believe that you can do things.
Yeah, Ash, we're gonna talk about BBM in just a bit, no? Para we can concentrate first on Bongo. But I wanted to ask the both of you, and syempre, para bang, I'm sure lahat tayo ganun ang iniisip. Akala ba natin si Bongo, ang gusto talaga na, akala ko ba, ang gusto ni Digong na ang tumakbo ay si Bongo? And yung sagot ba doon sa tanong na yan ay simulacra? Professor Ton?
Well, like I said, I'm going to stick to my analysis. It's basically it's planned because as early as January and February, I'm already hearing all these stories coming from the south, from some reliable sources that I have, that in the end it's going to be a BBM Sara tandem.
Right.
So and it's now a BBM Sara tandem. Then someone told me that basically that's how President Duterte plays politics, like a game. Like playing with pawns where you anticipate the moves of your opponent.
Right, okay.
And so it's basically something that probably it's just yung nasobrahan siya sa pag-iyak sa TV, di ba?
Okay.
Si Bongo. So parang it's too good to be true. Parang sobra naman yata yung drama, di ba? Parang ganun.
Yeah, well, chess or, there's another board game made by a Filipino, Game of the Generals, where you can't see each
We used to
other.
play that in
But
high
anyway,
school.
pero hindi general lang ang mga Game of politicians makes him stronger. So, itong withdrawal ni Bongo, is it going to benefit Bongbong Marcos, Professor Ton?
Oh yeah, because many of the supporters of Bongo are natural Marcos supporters. Basically, because remember, the diehard Duterte supporters, the DDS, and the loyalists would be one cohort that supported the Duterte administration. And so they are, even if they quarreled recently because of the Go Marcos rivalry initially, they're natural allies. And the question is who will be endorsed by the president. Endorsement could come in two ways. It could be overt and covert. Now, openly, someone can endorse one candidate, but under the table, it could be another candidate. And sometimes
not unusual.
in this world where you have images, sometimes even if you attack a candidate, for example, that might also be an endorsement because the attack might appear
The way
to be
President
so
Duterte has
contrived.
been attacking Bongbong Marcos.
Yes,
and calling
I
him-
would even say, Pia, that for example, these recent attacks, yung unang akusasyon niya na Marcos is a communist, which is not true, is and no one believes that. It's already like a staging of a lie, because if you told a lie, then no one will believe you the second time around. And that's what happened when he said, he alluded to a drug addict for a presidential candidate. And many people suspected it to be you-know-who. And so now it's almost like
And then calling him
Duterte is
also weak leader, spoiled child, no?
inoculating, inoculating or vaccinating Marcos.
Okay.
More like binabakunahan na para hindi na tabla ng mga susunod pang atake.
Oo. Itong mga attacks, so-called attacks on Marcos Jr., as he has been referred to, these are parang yung matatawag natin parang things going against, okay, quote-unquote, going against Bongbong. At the same time, people, preferring to call him son and namesake of a dictator. Parang pilit na kinakabit yung salitang diktador dun sa pangalan Bongbong Marcos. And then yung 4 na petitions that are filed against him to disqualify him at the COMELEC. What do you think of all of these, Ash Presto? Are these, like Greg Garcia was saying, are these just going to make him even stronger because it's not going to kill him? Ganun ba yun?
I think so, Pia. But also, I want to put a hazard on just plainly saying that that Duterte has been criticizing Marcos, because Duterte, unlike any of his tirades against other presidential votes, has not directly named Bongbong Marcos in all of his rants against this blind item person who comes from a very political family, who is a very weak leader and who does cocaine. So he hasn't named exactly who that person is, although the allegations are very pointed. And although we know exactly who is pointing towards, he hasn't named him. So it's a very weird endorsement from the president. So if we have the kind of president we have in the Philippines, we know that as long as he doesn't directly directly go against someone, then you know that there is a very huge possibility for them to still team up. And we also know that the supporters of Duterte and Bongbong Marcos have one thing also in common, which is a nostalgia for an authoritarian rule. And Duterte supporting Bongo, who is not as charismatic as Bongbong Marcos, who doesn't produce as much nostalgia for an authoritarian rule as the last name Marcos, then you know that at the end of the day, Bongo backing out, the opening up of endorsement from Duterte will at the end of the day benefit Bongo Marcos.
Yeah, maybe that nostalgia for a return to a strongman rule is part of the so-called democracy fatigue. And these are one of the 4 things going for Bongbong Marcos. And this is what I wanted to ask you about also in the comments. So, democracy fatigue. Medyo pagod na ang tao na parang nag-EDSA na tayo dati, di ba? Number 2, very motivated yung pamilya, because they can go for vindication here. And if they are vindicated, then, all they have to say, ano na EDSA nyo, di ba, noong 1986. And then, sabi nga ni Greg Garcia, brand name. The Marcos is a brand name, no? And then doing well in pre-campaign service. We're going to talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Things still going to happen in this saga. Professor Ton.
I think it's the strongest. Surveys indicate. And I think the reason why Marcos resonates with people is that he has a very powerful narrative. I call it, he's a brand, but I call it the Count of Monte Cristo, the Crisostomo Ibarra narrative. An elite person
Crisostomo Ibarra.
whose family was persecuted and then he's coming back with a vengeance. So and even and that is a very powerful narrative, as powerful as a poor person climbing up the political ladder. So I think that
The
that
family is
something that is going
persecuted.
for him.
The family is
Yes.
persecuted now.
Yeah, the family is persecuted,
okay.
and people even
Interesting,
perceive that he was cheated out of a victory in 2016. So it's also vengeance, it's redemption, and people love that in movies.
Okay,
That's
so
a very good sellable narrative to the masses.
okay. Ash, Presto?
I would agree to what Pia mentioned, what you mentioned a while ago about democracy fatigue, but I would also put caveat on that, because for you to have a democracy fatigue, then you should have experienced democracy in the first place. What we have been experiencing is democracy in its electoral form, but democracy in its deliberative, in its contested form is yet to be seen. So maybe we can also say that a lot of people are still disillusioned by democracy, and these can be traced from the broken promise of the EDSA revolution. For almost 4 decades after the EDSA revolution, you just have to ask one question: what happened? And you can answer that. So the support for Bongbong Marcos still remains.
Yeah, this whole question about EDSA, because you have 36 years now. The 36 years, 29 years, were you had presidents who were in power who were well allied with EDSA or against the Marcoses to a certain extent. So that's why people are saying we had expected real change, but hindi nangyari. Kaya ganun ang, and that will explain why people want BBM now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No change.
Yeah.
There's no change.
Okay. Kanina nabanggit mo, Professor Tono, 2016. I remember Lenny was saying that she'd run if Bongbong would run so that she could stop him. But she squeaked past him by like 200,000 votes in 2016 in the VP race. But what's it going to be like now? Because the surveys don't put Lenny, very high up there. So, paano na?
So you really have to ask, if indeed Lenny won in 2016, you have to ask, why are the numbers like that? Maybe things happened. Maybe I would explain that first of all, Lenny was really savage by a bad PR by coming from the diehard Duterte supporters. And second, it is the perception also about, is it really true now? Nasasabi tuloy mga tao, minsan, pag ganyan ang number, ito nga pa talagang dinaya siguro si Bongbong. Nakakadagdag yan dun ngayon sa vengeance, redemption narrative. That abay, dito na tayo kasi ito ay dinaya. Kasi nakikita ngayong numbers.
Pero, ngayon, tama bang sabihin? Kasi, some people are saying, the opposition, I mean, the Lenny, you can't say the Dilawan, the Kakampinks, are saying, if you don't vote for Lenny, then Bongbong will win. So it's going to be your fault. Tama ba yun, Ash?
That is the assumption that democracy is just all about elections. So a lot of activities can still be considered as democratic. And of course, Prof. Ton will agree with that even revolutions, rallies, and et cetera, will be considered as under the realm of democracy. So only people can tell if that is the way that is a logical result of people not voting for Lenny Robredo. But also I would like to add that a lot of the allegations against Lenny Robredo is very woman biased. So a lot of biases against her come from the fact that she is a widow, that she's a woman, and she's been branded as just a housewife by a lot of politicians right now. And this plays into a lot of the sexism culture in the Philippines, which also still fuels the candidacy of Duterte for senator and then Bongbong Marcos as president.
Yan mga kabanat, yung napakinggan yung discussion ni yung interview ni Professor Contreras, lalo na dito sa issue patungkol kay Lenny Robredo. Sabi niya nga talaga siguro baka totoo nga na nadaya si Bongbong Marcos dahil nga napakababa yung rating ni yung survey ni. So ako hindi sa akin kasi hindi naman kasi basihan talaga yung survey. Naniwala ako dyan kasi yung survey kukonti lang naman talagang tinatanong. Pero makikita natin sa karaban ngayon, kumpara mo kasi kay Lenny Robredo at vice sa Bongbong Marcos, napakalayo yung karaban nila. Halos ang kay Lenny Robredo mga kababayan ay nilalangaw. Samantala itong kay Bongbong Marcos, napakaraming tao. Halos hindi mahulog ang karayom yung mga supporters niya pag nagkaraban. Yung kay Lenny Robredo, ultimo aso ay ginagamit na nilang dahilan. Kita mo, may nakita ko aso, dinamitan ng pink. Tapos may pangalan, Lenny Robredo. may hawak-hawak niyang placard itong humihila sa aso. Ibang klase talaga yan, ganun. So maraming salamat mga kabanat. Yan muna ang video natin about sa politika dahil nga wala tayong mapulot na ibang mga topic patungkol dito. So see you mga may issue sa Parmali siguro sa Merkulis. Ano ba ngayon? Bernes mga kabanat yung hearing sa Parmali, no? Pamuno ni Senator Gordon. So maraming salamat.